they are going into these elections without Madiba, and they are going to try, and they've been trying very hard to try to connect the current status of the ANC with what Madiba stands for. We know that Madiba represents that glorious history of the ANC, a selfless leader who has actually put his life aside in the interest of South Africans. And this is where I think the ANC is trying to regain that moral position in the eyes of South Africans, to say that Madiba comes from within us as the ANC, and therefore we are capable of rising to that occasion. And I think it is also because they're being evaluated on the basis of that as well.
Are they capable of rising to that level of moral leadership?
The main reason why they are so emphatic about it, the main reason why they even go clearly saying that we are going to dedicate this to Madiba, it is because they are responding to the doubt that are beginning to emerge within the society, that actually this party seems to be going in a different direction, that it is struggling to emulate Madiba. Because if you look across different parties in South Africa, you realize that other opposition parties are also laying a claim to Madiba. There are different versions as to what Madiba stands for, as other parties are trying to tease out some of the values that they believe they can run with. And that poses a competition to the ANC, that the ANC doesn't have a monopoly on Madiba. And looking at the manner in which they've carried themselves as a governing party in the last few years, 5 years or so, that makes that question to gain even more traction.
Do you think the Madiba image, the Madiba leadership and the status as a global icon would play into in the next election?
It certainly is going to do that. It's not only within the ANC, but opposition parties as well. This is the man whose leadership and whose way of life represent the moral rectitude in our country. It represents the highest bar you can ever achieve in terms of being selfless and providing leadership. And if you look at the social discontent in South Africa, the level of disgruntlement, as we have seen with some protest on the ground, it shows exactly that the country needs to reposition itself. The leadership needs to reposition itself, morally speaking.
But morally speaking, do you think we've got the kind of leadership, especially in the ANC today, that can actually deliver on that moral rectitude? If you look at what's been going on in the past year, you can list a number of incidents that make people wonder. You know, that sometimes it looks like they shy away from that moral leadership issues, focus more maybe on the legalistic side of things, the judicial side of things, procedure side of things, but forgetting that leadership to be complete, you have to be at a particular moral high ground.
I'm afraid, observing the ANC at this point and observing the ANC in the past 5 years, that they are having a challenge in demonstrating that they have, or they still retain, that moral compass to be able to live up to that high standard that has been set by Madiba. And some people usually would say that will attribute that to a single person or two people, saying that the reason why the ANC is struggling is because of this, is because of that person. In my view, it is the organization itself. If you do not have people within the organization who would be able to stand up against certain things and voice their views and break the ranks, you cannot blame individual. It is a collective challenge that the party is undergoing.
But some commentators would say certain individuals in the past, in different roles in the public domain, have spoken out, have tried to say this is not the right way, and they've been ostracized, either as selling out on the revolution, or as counter-revolutionaries, or as pandering to other interests. So it becomes very difficult, I think, if you want to stand up and say this is where we should be going. Or do you think people are a bit cowards?
It becomes very difficult. There are consequences, of course. There are ministers in cabinet who, some of who, maybe if they start to voice certain things on the decision or on where cabinet is going, there might be consequences. This is politics. It happens everywhere. But I think, how do we judge those ministers, those individuals? That moral rectitude is required when it is difficult. You cannot say that I'll only stand up when there are less consequences. That shows lack of commitment to the highest standard of leadership. It is when it's most difficult, when the consequences could actually be severe, including also being ostracized, that you want to see the display of that moral rectitude.
How should we judge the ANC as ordinary South Africans and as voters? I'm asking this question because I recall very vividly, in 1996, one of the interviews I did was with the current Deputy President of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. At that time, he was the General Secretary. We said, how do you, as the ANC, post-democracy, want to be judged? He said, judge us by the highest standards possible.
It's a good question. The main thing that concerns me as I look at this question is, how do we look at the ANC in the post-liberation? The ANC is operating in a modern society now, since 1994, in a modern, open, democratic society. That has got its own challenges, where the party structures can be seized by certain individuals and interest groups. It happens across political parties. And I think that how should we judge it? We should judge the party in relation to the extent to which it can rise above that, the extent to which it has self-correction measures against interest group infiltrating the party internally, and therefore seeing the party as a channel for accumulation of resources. At this point, I haven't seen that level of commitment within the ANC being demonstrated. I'm not seeing the self-corrective, maybe invisible hand within the ANC, where you could say that the party can really emerge, where the party can rise to the occasion of being a modern party. What we hear mostly is the recount of the tradition of the ANC as a liberation movement. But how does the party fit into a modern society?
You deserve to know more.
ENCA.com